Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to the Miami GP Sprint qualifying. We have another Miami attire here today on the channel. Unbelievable stuff. And to add a little bit of spice to the Miami attire, today is my birthday, which means you have to be nice to me, you have to like, and you have to subscribe. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. Enough of that, though. So, should we talk about this bloody sprint stuff then? Because here we are. I missed the practice session because I was having a birthday. But I have seen the sprint. From what I understand of the practice session, Leclerc did a big spin, and that was about it. In terms of upgrades, because we didn't do upgrade corner on the on the preview. McLaren have come to town with quite the collection of upgrades. And once again, they have done the thing where only Norris has all of them. Which is unfair, but that's what they do. Piastri has half the upgrades, though. So that is a bit better than last year, where they would just give him none of them for like 2 races. And everyone would go, wow, look how good Norris is. Why isn't Piastri that good? And then he would get them eventually and be there or thereabouts. But this weekend, Norris has all the upgrades. Piastri has half of them. Not that their qualifying position would tell you that. We'll get on to that in a little bit. So going into SQ1, Leclerc looked to be struggling very much at the start of the session for general grip, but that might be because of just the Miami surface as a whole. Now, I haven't confirmed this for myself, but my friend of mine told me that the track has been resurfaced for this year, which is surprising because, you know, it's crap as it is, and when you resurface it, the grip goes away a little bit more. Combine that with the fact that it's a track that doesn't get used that often. We did have F1 Academy here as well this weekend, though, so you get a bit more grip on there. So it might just be because he was the first guy out, he was struggling for grip. That's my point I'm going to say there. In terms of other noteworthy things that happened in this session, there was nearly a crash between Bottas and Piastri. Now, I think it was Anthony Davidson on Sky who was like, oh, well, that'll just be a fine for the stake of wanting to pick Sauber team because, you know, they didn't tell Bottas that Piastri was coming through. But really, I don't think that's true. Now, he might be correct here, who's to know? But I think that should be a penalty for Bottas and a fine for the team. Because, yeah, he should have been told that Piastri was coming through, but also, he has mirrors, and he should use them. And I think we've seen it last year a lot where people were impeding people, that even if their excuse was, oh, the team didn't tell me, that wasn't good enough. So I wouldn't be surprised here if Bottas does get a penalty that sends him to the back of the grid. Not that that would be very far away from where he actually qualified. So let's have a look at the bottom 5. Alex Albon is dead last after his time was deleted after the session. To be honest, this was a pretty cut and dry one. He just cuts the chicane before the final sector, so not too hard to see where he gains time there. So he starts dead last in what I believe is the first time Sargent's ever beaten him. I might be wrong on that, and maybe it doesn't count because it's a sprint, but I think this is the first time Sargent has ever beaten Alexander Albon. Sargent is 19th. In what could possibly be his last ever F1 race weekend. A big story kind of building over this weekend is that Kimi Antonelli may be in the car for Imola. I think we touched on this a little bit in the preview, but the FIA apparently have made, Mercedes have made an official motion towards the FIA to have special dispensation to allow Antonelli to have a super license under the age of 18 to make his move into Formula 1 at the next race in Imola in 2 weeks' time. We'll be talking more on that if it actually happens. That's one to keep an eye on for what could be potentially Sargent's last ever race weekend, starting 19th for the sprints. Valtteri Bottas is in 18th, but as we said, that could be moved down with a penalty. His teammate Zhou Guanyu is 17th, and Pierre Gasly is 16th. So not too many shockers in terms of who went out in SQ1. We got a few shockers in SQ2 though, and it surrounded the Mercedes team, who did not have a good time. I thought the signs were there from the start of SQ2. When Lewis Hamilton completed his first lap time, Martin Brundle said, and I quote, "That's not a groovy time." And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about Lewis Hamilton's lap time, I don't know what will. Let's cut to the chase here in terms of who has been knocked out in SQ2. In 15th was Yuki Tsunoda, beaten by Daniel Ricciardo again. If we're counting sprint qualifyings, this is his third qualifying session in a row now that Ricciardo has beaten him. So he had China sprint, China main race, and now Miami sprint. So 3 in a row for Ricciardo. So I think it's 4-3 now, which has turned around very quickly for Daniel Ricciardo there. Kevin Magnussen was in 14th, Ocon 13th, and a very impressive 13th, and I'll tell you for why in a second. Hamilton 12th, Russell 11th. Very disappointing for both Mercedes boys out in SQ2. Ocon was only like 0.06, I think it was. That's how far he was off the back of Lewis Hamilton. So very close there for Mercedes to nearly being beaten by an Alpine who are awful. So just not a good day at the office for Mercedes yet again. And Martin Brundle brought up in the broadcast, apparently Russell has said that Mercedes will not be changing setups between the sprint and the race like they did for Hamilton in China when it all went dreadfully wrong. We'll see if they stick to that, because it could just be their car's not very good, and I'm not counting that out whatsoever, but maybe this is a setup issue. I'd be surprised if they don't look at a setup change now, depending on how the sprint race goes, of course. If the sprint race goes okay, maybe we'll see them stick with that. So, yeah, yet again, though, another bad one if you are a Mercedes fan. Then going into SQ3, and everyone is only setting one lap here. No one wanting to waste the tyres on 2 laps in SQ3. So we get some lovely shots of someone going jet skiing, and that was nice to see. Into the actual laps that everyone did, though, and we're on board with Max Verstappen as he completes his lap, and he does make quite the mistake over the chicane into the final straight, has quite a bit of oversteer there, so wasn't as quick as he possibly thought he should have been. But let's go through the top 10. It's Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. In 9th is a very disappointing Lando Norris. Lando Norris, who had pace all the way through SQ1, SQ2, as soon as he got to the final session, that pace seemed to just disappear. He was like 8/10 off the pace before he even got through the final sector. I don't know if he made a mistake or something went wrong, but for the McLaren car with all the upgrades on it, I expected a hell of a lot better than 9th. So not great for Lando. Fernando Alonso is 8th, Lance Stroll 7th. A surprising switch around there of the Astons. I don't think it is the first time this year. If I remember correctly, I think it might have happened in Australia. So, it's not completely out of the norm, but Lance getting ahead of Alonso. Piastri in 6th, which was a very good result for him. Sainz in 5th. An incredible 4th place for Daniel Ricciardo. My goodness, when the world is doubting Daniel Ricciardo, when he didn't get the time to shine in China because Lance Stroll took him out, he's put a marker down here with 4th place. Fantastic lap from him. Sergio Perez in 3rd place. It's Charles Leclerc in 2nd, which is also very impressive because it was his first lap time of the weekend with the soft tyres on, because he missed out on so much in the practice session. So his first one, and he nearly gets it on pole. But on pole for the sprint tomorrow, despite feeling that his lap was awful and making that mistake, it is Max Verstappen. So there you go, Max on pole for tomorrow. I think it should be a very intriguing weekend going from here because, obviously we still have Max at the front. which I don't think is going anywhere fast. But lots of little bits of intrigue going in here, especially in the Ferrari versus McLaren thing here, because I don't think Lando Norris's 9th place is really representative of the kind of pace he can pull out. I think there's a lot more pace in that car than what was shown in SQ3, and I don't know if it is better or not than the Ferrari, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the main story throughout both races, of which is better there. So that is something to keep an eye on. What can Ricciardo do from 4th? That's an interesting one. If there happened to be some kind of incident between the top 3 guys, my goodness, wouldn't that be wonderful for him to capitalise on that from the sprint race? And what of Mercedes, of course, in 11th and 12th? What can they do from there? A lot of interesting stories and questions going into this race. I'll be here for all of it and so much more as we continue throughout the Miami GP race weekend. Come back tomorrow to see what kind of shirt I'm wearing then. My goodness, we'll be here for the sprint race and main qualifying all tomorrow. So until then, though, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.